What's going on, guys? It's Samnang with your host here of Flow In, Flow Out podcast. And I'm the head coach at Peak Performance Academy, lifestyle, hybrid athlete, and philosopher. And I got a very, very special guest on the FIFO Flow In, Flow Out podcast today. He is the beautiful and lovely, handsomest, greatest little brother in the fraternity of all persons here. His name is Omar Dean Bokhari. I want to tell you a little bit about him and his resume and like why he's here on the episode. To be honest, I'm actually extremely nervous to have him on the podcast. I was like, oh man, I got a real professional, world-class podcaster that I'm gonna be having on my podcast here. I think I'm on episode 36. But so Dean is my fraternity brother, younger fraternity brother. I was his mentor. I brought him in. I recruited him into the fraternity, and he became the president of the fraternity while I think I graduated, and he became president of the fraternity. And now he is a lifestyle professional speaker, author, owner of Flashbooks, owner of Meaningful HQ. Let's see, you've been featured on Entrepreneur, Lifehacker Inc., the Elite Daily, HuffPost. This dude resume stacked. He's stacked. And look, he looks like me too. Look, he got the exact same outfit as I do.
Yeah, I love how we're both rocking the same vest today, you know?
Yes, welcome, Omar
That's a heck
Dean
of an introduction,
Bokhari.
man. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Sam. I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words, my brother.
Yes. So I'm excited. So typically how the Flow In, Flow Out podcast is, you come in, we talk about our story, where we're at right now. And we've had a fairly long history. We've known each other since college. And I recruited this gentleman. I saw this guy on the streets. I was like, man, look at his hair. I said, look at his hair I was like, I got to get him on a fraternity. And I started recruiting him. And he's a great guy. Like the work ethic that I saw in you, I was like, I think you were the only gentleman that I knew in college that actually had like a full-time job, that carried a full-time job and was still keeping up with his schoolwork and trying to be the best he can. I don't know, the best you can. You could talk about your college days and everything. I'm sure.
Yeah. You know, Sam, like that was the fact that you brought me in to Delta Chi, you know, that I'll always be indebted to you for that, because that was like an experience unlike any other. And in a lot of ways, it's almost like I grew up while, you know, after joining our fraternity and, you know, taking on different roles and stuff like that. It was, you know, an incredible experience. It's something that I'll always remember, and look at the lifelong friendships that we've been able to build because of that, you know. So, you know, hats off to you, and I'll always be indebted to you for recruiting me, man.
Thanks, man. I don't know. I saw something in you. I was just like, I think you had the option to recruit to other like fraternities. I think I was talking to you, but I was like, I think I want to put some attention on this guy. I don't know why. Because everybody I get in the fraternity was like, this guy's a prima donna, a pretty boy, and everything. But I was like, you know, going through like the fraternity and stuff, like I mentored you through that kind of process, because it was a tough process for you, I think, mentally, because I don't think you were kind of prepared for that type of, it was a big ego check. College was like, or fraternity was a big ego check. And then as you grew up in the fraternity, kind of figuring out like your career choices, but still maintaining, you became the president of fraternity. And I was like super proud of that. I was like, man, my little brother in the fraternity was the president of this fraternity that we put together here. But maybe I kind of want to hear about like that process of like transitioning from college and then dealing with that.
Transitioning from college. So, you know, it's interesting because, you know, as I had stepped into like that leadership role in our fraternity, and you know, that was around, I believe, I'm pretty sure it was my senior year in college, and I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because, you know, from grade school onwards, I'd always told everybody that I was going to just, you know, go to college and then go to law school and become a lawyer, and that was going to be my game plan.
I remember that game plan.
What's that?
I remember that game plan. I knew you wanted
You
to be
remember
a
that game
lawyer
plan? Yeah,
or
and
an actor, or you were going to be an actor too.
yeah,
But
well,
no, that's when you went to Hollywood.
the
Yeah.
that's after trying to, you know, that's during the phase of figuring it out. That's like my
Yes. Yes.
figuring it out phase. But initially, I'd been telling everyone that I was going to be a lawyer,
Yeah.
and I realized that I didn't really want to do that. I was just telling people that because every time I told folks that I wanted to be a lawyer, that I was going to go to law school, they were
Yeah.
like beyond impressed. Like they were just like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to do that?" I was like, that would make me feel good, but only on a surface level. It was just external
Uh,
validation. It wasn't internal validation. It wasn't purpose driven, right? It was something, it started to feel like something that I was going to push myself to do rather than something that I felt pulled to do.
pulled. Yeah.
And what I've realized is that when you feel pulled to do something, whether it's personal or professional, like that's when you can really sink your teeth into it. That's when you can really, not just find meaning and passion, but excel at,
Yeah.
when you feel pulled. Not to say that you can't push yourself from time to time because, there are certain things and certain times when you've got to push yourself, right? And so that kind of led to a crisis when I realized
Crisis.
senior
It's a
year,
crisis. Yes.
I'm busier than ever. Many, many million different commitments aside from our fraternity. My mom had also suffered from a stroke. And so things, were very hectic for me. And then now I'm like reevaluating my career choices here. And so things got a little messy for me there.
Yeah.
And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to go to law school. It's just not for me. I'm not called to do that. I don't feel pulled by it. I just feel a lot of pressure to do it. And when I really went inside and when I really thought about it, when I really just, thought, is this really what's going to fulfill me? Is this going to be a meaningful career path for me specifically? And the answer was no,
Yeah.
and not to say that anything it's, law is a field that's, it's highly respected. It's an incredible field. I know plenty of lawyers that are happy. So you can be happy in that field. Obviously, you can be happy in a million different fields. It just wasn't
Yeah.
for me. And that then kind of led to me trying a bunch of different things just to figure out what the heck
Yeah.
I wanted to do with my life. And that was an incredible journey of ups and downs. Like, I ended up
Yeah.
moving to California, and that was shortly after graduating from college. So I knew that I wanted to go somewhere else, and I wanted to try out a bunch of different things until I figured out what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so we had a fraternity brother in California, and I had an opportunity to go out there and visit him right after I graduated from college. And I stayed out there with him for about a week or so. And I remember just as soon as I got off the plane, man, I
You are
just felt
inspired,
it.
weren't you? Weren't
I
you
was
inspired?
incredibly inspired, incredibly inspired.
Yeah.
And there was just something about California that just I was drawn to. I felt at home out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Honestly, and this is coming from somebody who was born in New York, which a lot of people consider the opposite of California.
Yeah.
But I just felt at home here. And,
Yeah.
I've been here ever since. But after, coming back home from that my first visit to California, I thought, you know what? I got to figure out a way to get out here and move out
Yeah.
here. I want to do it
Yeah.
quick. And around 6 months later, I was offered a job with the second largest tobacco company in the world. And they offered to move me out to Southern California, which is exactly where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so I took it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this job and I'm going to do the work and it'll be my day job. And I'll try out a bunch of different, careers and side hustles while I'm, in this day job. And it didn't quite work out that way. Before I knew it, 3 years had passed and 4 years had passed, and I sort of had on those
Yeah.
golden handcuffs that,
Golden handcuffs. You talked about that. That's something that I use a lot in And I remember you teaching me and having this similar conversations when I was going through my career path. But yeah, continue on with the story.
Yeah, yeah, those golden handcuffs are dangerous,
Yeah,
man, because
dangerous.
yeah, it gets you, you end up in a lifestyle that, requires you to keep those cuffs on, and it's hard to get out of it. And so I had those golden cuffs on until one day I literally just had a straight up breakdown. I
Yeah. Oh shit.
At this point I had been like, diving into a lot of self-development books, doing a lot of self-development work, really trying to transform myself from the inside out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I realized, I started to think about the moral implications of working for a tobacco company. And that all sort of led to a breakdown before a meeting one day. I remember driving up, I was in the parking lot, I was getting ready to meet the owner of this chain store to sell a new line of our products to. And like, I just couldn't get myself to get out of the car. I couldn't do it. And I remember like it was insane. It was like a blisteringly hot day in a city called Chino Hills in Southern California. And
Yeah.
I was just in my car in the parking lot. And right before I thought I could push myself to get out of the car and go to this meeting, I just broke down and I just started crying in my car. And the next day I went to my then, boss, and I quit.
Just like that.
Just like
No
that.
plan. No plan.
No plan. And that was probably the greatest and stupidest thing that I've ever done with my career. I would never suggest to anybody to just get up and quit their job without having a game plan in place, or without having, maybe you have a side business that you slowly build up
Yeah.
to at least half of the income that you're making at your day job before quitting. But, I did it. It was an emotional decision, like a heart-based decision. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't get myself to do the work anymore, because now, from my perspective, I'm contributing to the death of 29 million people around the world. It's a tobacco company. A
Yeah.
lot of people smoke. And
I was your
so,
big brother. I was like, you got to quit smoking. You got to quit smoking. And I was big in the health and fitness game. And I think I was one of those guys that was just like, you got to quit smoking. That's a bad habit and stuff. But I'm sure that rung in your ears and things like that as well
yeah,
too.
that rung in my ears. Working for that company rung in my ears. It just didn't sit right. What it really was, Sam, is I was out of alignment with my values.
Your alignment.
Whenever you're
Yeah.
doing things that are not in alignment with your values, it's really hard to move forward, to make progress, or to succeed. I mean, you can pretend for a while, but the
Yeah.
truth, the reality hits you at some point in time. And
Man.
I just got hit with reality, man. And I realized this wasn't my thing. It wasn't aligned with my values. It wasn't meaningful. In fact, I felt like I was destroying. I wasn't contributing in a positive way. I wasn't adding value to the world. I was contributing to something that was hurting people. And
Yeah.
so, I quit. And that's really where I think my journey began. I tried out a bunch of different things, from acting and modeling and hosting
Yeah.
and like, I realized throughout that journey, reading a bunch of books, trying a bunch of different career paths, that all these self-help books that I'm reading, I get super excited about those ideas. And
Yeah.
it's so funny. I realized, just in a natural way, like I'd read these books trying to find myself.
Yeah.
And then I'd be talking to my friends and my
Yeah.
wife and you, for example. And I'd get most excited when I would be talking about that self-help stuff, that self-improvement stuff, motivation and being productive and doing meaningful work. And,
Yeah.
then I realized one day, just journaling, journaling, writing down my thoughts. I was like, holy smokes, this is what I want to do. Like, this is my
Yeah.
thing. I want
Yeah.
to
Your
teach
epiphany.
this.
Yeah.
That was my epiphany.
That was your epiphany. I
you
want
know.
to, the story that you shared, give you a little bit of a break, but like, yeah, I mean, you're a great speaker. I'm sure you could speak for like an hour without stopping, but your story is it's parallel to mine. It's always a crisis or a pain point that gets you. I think during college, I speak a lot about it on my podcast. Is this where I made my first big breakthrough? Is because of a lot of like pain of like indecision that comes up. I think when I was like a senior or sophomore going into my junior year, I really was like, I haven't had to even declared my major, and I wasn't even feel like I was like getting the progress that I wanted. I wasn't even working out. And then I asked one of our fraternity brothers to kind of give me some guidance. His name was Austin Cohen, our AMC at the time. He gave me the Tony Robbins book, and I only read like about a third of it, and it was just so empowering at that moment. I was like, oh my god, right? And then I just had like that like I would say like my first breakthrough in things. So and then that's when I was like, I don't know exactly what it was. I knew I wanted to do something in my personal development and then business as well too. So the choice for me was to decide business, and then and I chose my major and then started working out consistently. It was almost that breakthrough that like of like pain, right? I've had a
Hmm.
lot of like different pain points as I've gotten through it in my career. The most recent one I could talk about as well too, but that's where I'm here, right here with the podcast and like the personal development community. We could talk about that. But in college and stuff, like deciding there at that moment, I didn't know exactly what the hell I wanted to do, but it almost wanted like it was like a feeling of like freedom. Like I wanted freedom, I wanted some money, I wanted some influence, right? But I didn't know exactly what it was. And I kind of went after I graduated in my career was like you're a great speaker. Like I remember like I was like, man, I heard your podcast. I was like, man, you're like naturally gifted at like speaking. Some people are
Thank
naturally
you, man.
gifted like writing. I'm pretty gifted in like the athletics. So I've kind of like ventured into like athletics and bodybuilding and everything. So that's kind of been like my niche. And it kind of just develops because you just kind of do what you want that makes you happy. So I think some folks will see me like I made a little breakthrough, but I was like, I just want to kind of be happy, at the end of the day, you right? Live in less pain and just be joyful. So I started working out a lot and gain a lot of influence in my communities in like CrossFit and even online and everything. So that's kind of like the path that I just kind of kept along, and then has evolved into like reading books similar like to you. You were one of the person that gave me a book that kind of exploded my reading practice. Do you remember you called me? I was like, "Hey man, I'm getting into like real estate and like business and entrepreneurship." You were like, "Yo, you gotta read Grant Cardone 10x." And
Which
literally,
one did I say? Was it the
yeah,
10x rule or
the
sell or be
10x.
sold?
I think it was be obsessed or be average, right? I think
Ah,
that was
yeah,
a be obsessed,
yeah,
be average. You gave me an Audible, and I was like, all right, and I read it, and then literally I 10x all my reading. Like I was reading maybe like 5 6 books per year, but in those like next 3 years I probably had read like 50 to 60 books each year, just because I
incredible.
was like, yeah, and I was like, it blew my mind. So you always had like little pieces of nuggets that like just dropped during my journey as well too. So going back to college and like working out and stuff, and then just reading books, right? I just felt so like, I would say it's like therapeutic, you
It
know
really is. It really
right?
is. And it's almost like it's almost hard to for me what I've noticed is that when I, am slacking on my reading because I've got this habit of reading at least 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
It's sort of something that I've incorporated into my morning ritual. And, sometimes more, but minimum 30 minutes. Spend 30 minutes just feeding your mind, learning something new, and just bringing that wisdom into your life. And
Yeah.
I've realized that, the more you do that, you start connecting these different ideas from these different books that you're reading. And those connections help you come up with new and different ideas. And they sometimes change your perspective completely. Sometimes they lead to another cool thing is, reading one book sometimes leads to you
Yes.
reading another book
Another
because
book.
the author
Yeah.
will mention, so, I'm fascinated by reading, especially particularly nonfiction books. I have a library full of them. I
How
love
many
them.
Can you estimate how many books you've read? You're a beast in this field,
Oh
I'm sure.
man, dude. I
Over
mean, I
300.
definitely, I'm definitely over. I'm over the 700 book mark.
Damn.
Yeah,
Damn. I'm at like
like
250.
that's awesome. I stopped counting. Like after, I think I stopped counting after like 500 or something like that. Because then I realized it's like, okay, I'm just trying to. I'm
Yeah.
just like, you know, I just want
I
to be able
have,
to tell
yeah.
people that I read a bunch of books.
My reading's kind of slowed down, but it's more of kind of like I'm more picky now with the books. I think when I first the reading practice just kind of exploded. I was just like, let me read everything, get as much information as I can, and I did. I got a lot. Now it's kind of like now I got to go put it to use, like the entrepreneurship book and stuff. So that's more important for me now in this phase.
For
Where like,
sure.
yeah, I could talk about it and stuff, but it's like it's for a way for people that are trying to keep their mind sharp and stay educated and stuff. That for me, it's probably the best way. For me, like I didn't want to go back to school. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? Eventually build a business, something similar like this. This came after I visited you. Actually, let me actually talk about that experience. This is actually
Yeah.
important. Like when you talked about you went to California, you just felt this vibe, right? This air of inspiration. So part of like this podcast is to provide some inspiration for some people as well too. So if you're feeling something like inside you, like urging you, when I went to go visit Dean, I had the same feeling. I was like, oh, I like this. This air feels really fresh, and the people were super friendly. Of course, like you and your lifestyle was like very healthy. This is, I think you had, I visited you a couple times. One prior to you making a switch into personal development. That's the version I like. The other version, not so much, but we can always talk about old Dean or old Omar. But the new version of you, I was like, oh man, this guy is connected to his purpose, his mission. And you had your green juice. You were talking about meditation, and then this stuff, like having this podcast and everything. And we had went to work out, and I saw people like in the gym like recording, kind of being like influencers and stuff, but it was like a different lifestyle, a different vibe. And I was so inspired, but I didn't tell anybody about it. I went back to the East Coast just like to, even when I worked in my corporate job, I was just like, man, I gotta learn some skills. I gotta learn how to speak. I gotta learn how to like write, and I gotta learn how to like digital marketing and stuff. So I went back. Like you're considered like a solopreneur. I went back into like an intrapreneur role, where I went back into like the
Yeah.
corporate world, where I just started learning skills, but also still doing my job at the same time and still getting
Mhm.
paid. So it was a route where it was a little bit, instead of actually just making a jump, was to learn skills. And when I was
Right.
ready to make the jump, because now like people say, like, how are you able to build all this stuff together so quickly? I was like, because I had built a whole bunch of skills prior to making a jump. And then when I was ready to make the jump, I was like, I had all the resources, and that's where I'm at now. That's why, yeah, I have the podcast. I have the similar in format of like your personal development community, but in my niche,
No, you're doing incredible things, man. You're doing incredible things with the Peak Performance Academy, and then you've got the FIFO podcast rocking and rolling. It's
do you
and
know how to
we've got
start
this thing
the
we talk once a month and catch up and talk about business. That's I enjoy those
yeah,
mini meetings that you and I have as well. So
business and personal development? It's
yeah,
really, that's what
yeah,
it's really about.
absolutely. It's funny. Like, were you mentioning when you was that the Vegas trip?
The Vegas trip was
Should
fun
we,
too.
should we talk
What
about
you
that Vegas trip? That
you
was
want to
a
talk about?
funny trip.
All right, so this is a good. We'll get some of our fraternity brothers to listen to
Oh
this story.
man.
I can
Yeah,
start it
who
off.
who was supposed to come along with us? Because something happened. We had
I
a group of like 4 or 5 of us, and then at the last minute, it just ended up being me and Samnang.
I'll tell you
It's
the
just
story.
us.
I'll tell you the story. I remember pretty clearly because so it was four of us. It was you, me. It was supposed to be Ted Adams and Fatback. I think it was Fatback's idea to get together and everything. I was like, all right, cool, let's go. I'm down. Right, or we'll go to Vegas and stuff. But it was you, the one that I think booked the ticket to Vegas, right? I don't know what it was. I think you had put a link, and I copied yours. I was like, all right, I'm in. But Ted and Fatbag had ordered a different plane ticket, so they went at a different time. So it was just me and you, and I was like, "Fuck!" And I'm to be honest, like Dean, I love you now.
Uh,
That was before you made that. You were still selling cigarettes. That's where you were still kind of like, I don't know if I like this guy. I love him that, but I haven't seen any like personal growth. And I was like, I gotta spend like I think it was like 4 or 5 days together, and then we ended up getting into that or going to that trip together, seeing you at the airport and everything. I was like, this guy is different. He's different. You know what I'm saying? And that trip was another trip that actually changed me because I was in a point later in life where I was trying to find like a wife and I was trying to find like or like a girlfriend. I wasn't having luck in dating. But then you recommended a podcast called The Art of Charm that really changed the game for me. And your podcast really changed my personal development because it kind of just gave me some like guidance, right? We talk
right.
about like the meaningful HQ has had a big influence on the way I think, you know, how I look at career, how I look at life. So that was the trip, and you could talk about it as well. I think we stayed in like 3 or 4 different hotels, but it was a great time. It was just us
It's
growing
it's
out.
so funny because like we for some reason I don't think there was anything that we could really do about it. Right? We had already gotten those tickets booked, and we're just like, okay, well, I guess it's not going to be a group trip. It'll just be me and Sam, and we'll make the best of it. And in all honesty, that's a very memorable trip for me because I feel like we almost kind of in a way rekindled that
Yeah,
bond, and it was great, man. We caught up a lot during that trip. We made the best of it, and we had a blast, out there.
it was fun. It was just like
Yeah.
you. To be honest, like it was like surprisingly like dead for Vegas, and it was the first time I went to Vegas, and I think you had moved to California, and it was a place that you spent a few times there, but it wasn't like showing off or anything. It was just like chill, a lot of it personal development, talking about like life on that trip, and it just kind of like a lot of growth occurred from that trip. And I think that was like where I was like, I like Dean. I like this guy. He's helped me, and I want to make sure that we stay connected. And I think it's an intentional relationship that we have. Where like I respect you. You have your growth, your personal development, your family, and everything. And I value your time and your guidance and mentorship as well too. And this is coming from somebody that has been your fraternity big brother that's mentored you and stuff too.
That's
So
right.
we've had different roles where I've mentored you, you kind of mentored me, and just have mutual respect.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, and we talked a lot about purpose on that trip too. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great trip, man. Great trip. So then look at you now, baby. Look at you now.
Yeah,
FIFO,
yeah.
baby.
This is
FIFO.
So let me tell you the story of the Flow In Flow Out podcast, and I could tell
Yeah.
you and share the screen with you about Dean's stuff because Dean's got some monster stuff on his personal development community. And I brought him on here to talk about like the remote coaching lifestyle. And you're a professional speaker now, right? That's like your
Yeah.
main okay.
Yeah, well, author, speaker,
Arthur speaker.
trainer. Yeah. So I focus, mostly on personal development content. So that would be, motivation, productivity,
Yeah.
goal setting, things like that. So
Yeah.
that's really my main focus.
Keep
And so
talking
I create
about
courses around
that,
that, talks around it, training workshops,
and
written a book about it.
I'll share the website. Do you see the website, Dean?
Yeah,
Or
I
this
see
is
it.
so
I see it.
let's talk about a little bit. You didn't just come up like a beast. We like to all think that, but you had some struggles in the beginning and how you were building out, and you were also like doing like trying to figure out a lot of stuff. This is where I think a lot of people kind of just like get stuck, where you try to
Yeah.
figure out a lot of stuff, and I've been there. Content creators, entrepreneurs, and stuff, where you just have so many ideas, but like, how do you execute it? How do you make it stick? So you got deanbokhari.com, and you are the host of meaning or the owner of Meaningful HQ, and then you got Flashbooks, right?
Flashbooks. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Talk
Yeah.
about
So
that, man. There's some good
a few
stuff.
different businesses. Yeah, they keep me pretty busy.
Yeah.
But
So you're a solopreneur. You're kind of you have a team, but you're kind of like in charge of everything, correct?
right. Yeah. So, I'm definitely grateful to have a team of awesome people that help me with certain elements of my different businesses.
Yeah.
And but for the most part, yeah, I'm like, the face of the companies, I'm the voice behind it all. And I created them, with my own, blood, sweat, and tears. And like you were mentioning, it was a real struggle in the beginning, and a lot of people don't talk enough about the struggle. They just oftentimes will just show you the success. And let me tell you, man, like the struggle is real.
Struggle. Yes,
And
bro. I'm
there's no
struggling right
there's no
now.
strength without struggle. There's no strength without struggle. There's no
No
success without
struggle.
struggle. And that goes for every living being thing. Like, there's I'm reminded of like this story that I read about, some time ago, where like
Yeah.
this lady goes in her backyard, right? And she sees these two cocoons of butterflies that they were gonna hatch.
Yeah.
And so she brings them both in, and she's like, "Oh, they're so delicate. I want to see them. I want to see them come out of their cocoons." And so she brings them inside of her home, and she sets them on her dining table. And a few minutes later or whatever, she comes back and she notices that the first cocoon that she's got
Hmm.
is slowly beginning to break open. And she's watching it, and then she notices like this butterfly is like really like struggling, like trying to push the inner walls of this cocoon so that it can break free. And after some time, after quite a bit of struggle, she witnesses it all, and she sees the butterfly finally break that cocoon and just like beautifully fly out of her window and into her garden. And then she looks at the second cocoon that she's got on her table. And she's like, man, I don't want this to struggle like that first cocoon did. So she decides to go and
Yeah.
get a little X-Acto knife, and she very, very
Uh,
gently slices open the cocoon. And she's trying to help this butterfly. She very gently slices open the wall of the cocoon so that the butterfly didn't have to struggle as much as that first one did. And you know what happened? She opens it up, leaves the room to allow that butterfly to break free. And when she comes back a few minutes later, she notices that it's broken free, but it died immediately
mm,
after coming out of that cocoon. And the
right.
reason is because that struggle, that painful process of busting through the inner walls of that cocoon, are what that butterfly was designed to need in order to be able to fly. If it doesn't struggle, just like we struggle in the gym, right?
Yeah.
To tear up those muscle fibers so that they can eventually come back stronger, right? That's the goal. That's how butterflies are. If they don't go through that process of breaking that wall in that cocoon, they're never going to be able to fly. They're just going to die right there on the spot.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to that second butterfly. And I'm just fascinated by that, because every being, every living being, not just us, but like, you know, different animals and insects too, man, even
Yeah.
them, they need to struggle before they can find their success.
Yeah.
And
There's some
there
there's
was a
some
hell of
truth
a
in that.
struggle on my end. There is.
Yeah, there's some truth that, and you know, as I do the podcast, I try to take notes and pay as much attention. But I really love that saying, "No strength without struggle." Right? I think I'm gonna name that the title podcast.
Thanks, man.
But that story of the butterfly, the caterpillar, the cocoon, to the butterfly, right? That's a lot of like nature, right? I think a lot of like people, you spent a lot of time in nature. You spent a lot of time studying Zen and how that works and stuff. And for me, same as well too. I've gotten I've been able to incorporate some of my spiritual teachings into my personal development coaching and podcasting as well too. And the Eastern culture, of course, Cambodian stuff, it's like I love nature and I love talking about it. But that how it relates to like personal development is like the struggle, like when you're going through hard times, like right now I'm struggling with this personal development community, building it, launching it, creating content, and doing coaching calls and putting a package together. To me, this is like a life like I did choose. It's definitely tough. It's definitely pushing me towards like my limits and everything of what I can do and capable of doing. But in this process, I know, and this is a very like warrior mindset, is that you develop during painful parts of your life, and you
Yes.
you start to embrace it after a while when you become used to it. So like anybody that listens to the podcast and using like metaphors from nature, using metaphors from like warriors and fighters and everything, these are all part of how you could develop like your own story. And to me, it's like I love using metaphors like nature. Sometimes I even use metaphors like anime characters and everything, so kind of add like a little bit my own personal touch and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. But continue on, like Dean Bokhari, like now that you're like your main like offer is like your public speaking, right? You talk about
Yeah, yeah.
that.
So right now, actually, what I'm really focused on right now is so for the last year or so, I've been building out just a catalog of courses to help people, get better
Yeah.
personally and professionally, or grow personally and professionally, grow their ability to, get inspired and energized on a daily basis, grow their productivity, grow their spirituality, grow in their relationship. And so, in right now, I'd like to be able to, I'm going to stop right now. I've got 19 different courses out that I've created over the span of about a year and a half. And so I'm almost to the point where I feel like I've covered everything that I want to cover. So that's like my main focus right now, is just building out all of these different courses. And those are at deanbokhari.com. And so I'm really enjoying that. And of course, from time to time, yeah, I still take on, a speaking or training offer when
Okay.
I'm available to do so. And then I've got
So like,
Flashbooks as
yeah,
well. So it's keeps me pretty busy. Not to
yeah,
mention two
you,
kids and a
yeah,
and a wife. So
yeah, dude, you've been cranking out the productivity and stuff. So it's like that's what your main niche is motivation
right.
and productivity. So let me,
Motivation, productivity, habits.
yeah, motivation, productivity. So I kind of blended like, so I kind of learned how to blend like my spiritual work into like my personal development community as well too. And I've been studying a lot of spiritual philosophy. There's this work of this guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah,
Joe
yeah.
Dispenza. You probably heard. A lot of people have heard of him.
Yeah. Breaking the habit of being you and the
Yeah,
placebo.
a
Yeah.
lot of neuroscience, a lot of brain work, and everything. And he's helped me actually heal a lot of my. I know we talked about it. Like when I was going through my separation and divorce, this caused a lot of pain because I was in a world of like working in this corporate job, go to sales or become an entrepreneur. I recently hit another crisis, right, where it had a lot of pain. It had a lot of like
Mm.
pain. I've talked to you about it. Um, but amongst this like pain, I always had this faith that something was gonna come out of it. I knew, right? Some of my friends asked me like, how did you know? I was like, I knew that I was in that cocoon phase. I
Right.
was in that
Right.
cocoon phase, and that cocoon phase for me was actually like, and I talk about it, it was actually pretty painful. It didn't last like a few days. It was almost like leading up for like 3 to 4 years, and then into that fourth year, it got so painful that I resorted to some of my breathing techniques. And what happened is I was doing a breathing technique from becoming supernatural to unlock the pineal gland,
Mm.
Basically, it's basically you become enlightened. So and I don't want to
Right.
tell
Yeah.
everybody, "Hey, I'm this enlightened being and everything," but my brain capacity, everything I knew, the pain went away. And I don't know if you ever had this feeling where like all your information is just there at like your
Yeah.
fingertips. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's incredible. To me, I call that flow. Like,
Yeah,
it's an incredible
flow.
feeling.
Yeah.
Incredible feeling. Go on.
When did you achieve flow? And like I got flow in my early 30s, but then I lost it. And then now I was like, I just made a commitment. I was like, this is how I'm gonna live my life. Like, um it's kind of like I have to be upfront with it if I go on like relationship or like dates and stuff. I was like, I can't let this go. Like if I let this flow or this connection to the universe go, it feels like I would probably like die. But I don't want to be the dramatic, but I don't think it will be a lot of painful moments for me if I decided to go back to like the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah. So like what like specific behavior is it that evokes flow for you the most right now? Like how do you
Flow.
tap how do you tap into it? How do you like
Uh,
to tap into it?
So I've kind of eliminated a lot of stuff like distractions besides my
Mm.
family, working out, work, and just like personal development, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I do hang out with friends, but it's more of like similar talks like this. It has to be about personal development. It has to be like business related and stuff. So that's kind of like how I stay in a flow state. And I'm really protective of my mental state now.
Mm.
I think that was when I went to like therapy and like NLP coaching and stuff is to learn to protect my mental space. Like if somebody starts saying stuff that like um because a lot of I used to work in a corporate environment. In the corporate environment, it's not as like I was promoting health and wellness and being and meditation, and it wasn't like that. Everybody said that they have these core values and stuff, but it was very toxic in a way where like people would yell at me and just like
Yeah, it's
wouldn't
very
respect
funny,
boundaries.
going into these corporate spaces and seeing these beautiful like core values on the wall and then realizing that in fact they're living the absolute opposite of those core values.
Yes, it wasn't in alignment. That's why I was there was such a
Right.
big crisis. I was like, I don't ever want to go back to this fucking corporate world. And that was like the golden nugget or the golden handcuffs that we talked about. It was like, okay, I could have kept pushing to be like I climbed the corporate ladder, sales, leasing manager, assistant general manager, and I became a director of resident services. And I did a good amount of work and got a lot of like experience. I was able to do a lot of stuff in before the around the pandemic when it started. Uh, I was the director of resident services. I was doing like community events and I brought them online. So that's kind of like I've always been about like there's a technical aspect too that even though you're a great speaker, you have to be very technical as well too in building these websites and making them connect and everything. And that is really like
Yeah. It's tough.
that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. Of course it's getting easier by the day, but
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough.
It's tough. And you've been doing it for a long time, and it looks like all three of your websites look pretty well optimized, organized, and everything. And I'm in the process. I like to think ahead as well too, and organize it properly and everything. But that's that part that's pretty tough. Like you don't really see. It's just like a constant struggle, and I'm still struggling. Like, but the struggle is good. It's good for growth.
Yeah, yeah, it's like healthy stress, or also known as stress, like
You
good
stress,
stress,
yes, yeah,
and so and these are oftentimes the things that prevent people from getting started in the first place. So if there is anybody who's listening and they're thinking about, starting their own thing, what I would say is that it's 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 not about how, because when the technical stuff is all about the how do you do it? There's like a knowledge gap that you got to figure out how to do this or do that or set up this WordPress. And, connect it to the payment processor, and then wait, do this, and then wait, what's going on? You know what I mean? So
That could be
it
overwhelming.
can get very, very overwhelming. But I would not let that dissuade you, or I mean, rather your listeners from starting,
Yeah.
right? It's not about how, it's about starting. Like, it's about just doing it. Like, just get started, and then the path reveals itself. And, of course, there's
The path.
tough challenges that you need to overcome, right? There's pain that you might have to deal with, but
Yes.
with that happens with every arena of life, doesn't it? Right? Who
Yeah.
hasn't had a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or relational pain? We've all experienced those pains at some point in time in life. And so this, to me, is just like any other endeavor. Like, you start, and as long as you keep yourself taking action and you remain consistent about it, you'll figure out the way. You'll
Yeah.
figure it out. But a lot of people let that prevent them.
Thank you guys for watching the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. So I want to take a moment and take a break from the show and thank you for being a part of our community. So I'm the head coach at Peak Performance Academy, and I want to talk about how you guys could support the channel and how we could support you as well too. So if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and share it with your thoughts. Leave a review with some feedback and let us know what you enjoy about the show. Your review helps the algorithm and gets our message out to more people. So here's how we could support you guys in your personal growth. So we have a coaching community called Peak Performance Academy, where I'm the head coach. We offer live coaching calls and lifestyle packages as well too. So if you need additional support in these areas of your life, please book a discovery call with us. We look forward to hearing from you and look forward to working with you. And also, if you are a fan of the Flow In, Flow Out podcast and you resonate with the message, and if you have an inspiring story to share, anything that you want to get out there that's going to help elevate the collective vibrations, we welcome you. Just let me know, send me an email, send me a comment, and then we'll get you scheduled on to the show. So we look forward to having you, and we love and appreciate all the support that have you been giving to our the Flow In, Flow Out podcast and the Peak Performance Academy community.
From actually ever getting started in the first place. And to
Yeah.
me, that's very, very sad. Like, I think that there's a lot of people, right, that they're going to end up dying without ever having really lived.
Yeah.
Right? When they know that there's this one life that they know they should be reaching for, that they want to, but there's a million things between that and their current circumstance that's preventing them from doing it.
Yeah.
And that's not living, right? That's not living, not to me.
You kind of live in regret,
Yeah.
right? I think
Yeah.
your story that you told me, like, oh yeah, I remember you're saying it's like live like you give a damn, right?
Live like you
That's
give a
what
damn.
live like you
Yeah.
give a damn. And I was like, damn, I was pumped when you would say that in your podcast.
The last thing I want to do, man, is the last thing I want to do is be 90 years old, right? Like, just sitting in this rocking chair and reflecting back on my life and thinking about everything that I did not do. Thinking about all of the regrets, all of the shouldas, the wouldas, the couldas. Man, I do not want that. I want to reflect on my life and think about all the stuff that I went for, all the stuff that I tried, all the beautiful experiences that I was blessed to have, and the painful stuff too. Because look, I mean, I've been at the lowest low, and I'm grateful for it. Now whenever I experience a challenge, I'm grateful for it. And probably one of my most difficult times in life, I remember it was like right after I'd quit the only real job that I suppose you could say that I've ever had, working for that tobacco company. And I remember, I had just gotten married, and then I quit this job, and now here I am in this makeshift sort of studio that I built inside of my kitchen in this apartment that I'm living in with my wife, and I'm like trying to record these audiobooks and these podcasts and stuff, and And I remember this one afternoon so vividly, like it was yesterday. I was like hustling, trying to figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like typing away or like recording something. And then all of a sudden, like the electricity goes out.
Did you not pay your
And
bill?
it went out because I didn't even have enough money in my checking account to pay for the darn electric bill. And that was like my lowest of lows. That was such a difficult time for me. And I could have went in two different directions.
Come
I could have
back.
either let that consume me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then retreat back to the safety of a traditional job,
Yeah.
or I could allow that to fuel me, right? To fuel me to find that fulfilling career path or to make this thing work that I was working on. And I'm so insanely grateful that I used that pain to fuel me to
Yeah.
figure things out. And
Pain, I mean, pain is something that you don't avoid, or I would even say, like, to our my listeners and stuff, is maybe more not avoid it, but like understand what it is. Because I think we kind of just avoid pain, and then, but the thing is, like, pain becomes something else later. I always say that in a podcast, is like that pain that gets avoided, it'll come some way in some other
that's
way.
right. Yeah.
So it's
It's like
like
Dispenza, Joe Dispenza says too, like,
yeah,
it'll show up in your body.
yeah,
Sometimes if you're not, if you're avoiding something or you're anxious about it, or if you feel called to do something and you're suppressing that desire, or you're just in this negative thought
hmm
spiral over and over and over again, that becomes a habit for you, then that shows up. It
yeah,
shows up on your in your eyes, it shows up in your
hmm
language, it shows up sometimes, maybe it'll show up as an illness of some sort, you
yeah,
know disease, right? That's dis-ease, right? When you're
disease, yeah.
not at ease, when you're not at ease, you experience dis-ease. That's a
Yeah.
disease. So
Yeah, no, I mean, really, like, I think when, last year, like when I was going through all my stuff, and then when I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I was like, and the change in your body, right, of really just understanding your body and becoming this the second this different version of yourself, right? It's kind of like a transformation. Like, you've gone through the caterpillar. Now you're the beautiful butterfly being that you are, with pretty hair and speak fantastic and stuff. People like, I like to like flatter my guests when I come on here, but but it's like that process that you're still like, you wouldn't be Dean Bokhari if you weren't struggling with things now. Like, I wouldn't be
right.
who I am if I wasn't struggling with things that I am now. And what part of my process is to document some of the stuff, the struggles, and talk about the inner workings of personal development and success and stuff. So maybe talk about your future, because you got your stuff on lock, but I'm sure you're in a phase where you're like, I think I need more growth, or
Absolutely.
scaling options and stuff. Um, our Flow and Flow Out podcast original host, his name is Danny. He's a digital marketing expert and stuff. So he's got video content. He's producing a podcast as well too, and his theme is about like humanistic approach to podcasting and digital marketing and stuff, in which, like, you're fantastic at. Tell us a little bit about like the what you're currently struggling on, what your future growth of like your podcast and the personal development community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So podcast is going to be relaunching at the end of this year. Instead of calling it Dean Bokhari's Meaningful Show, which is sort of a mouthful, we decided to change it to Meaningful FM, and
FM. Yep.
lock down the domain name for that and all that good stuff. And so that's going to be, it's going to be relaunched, and it'll be at the same location, same place, same platforms, available everywhere, just like it always had been prior to me taking the break from it. It'll just be called something different now. Instead of Dean Carr's Meaningful Show, it'll just be Meaningful FM. And so that'll be happening at the end of this year. I don't have an exact date on that yet, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm definitely, constantly I have this belief that if you're not growing, right, you're dying. And
Yeah.
so no matter what goal I've achieved or whatever milestones I am able to hit, I am constantly looking for the next level, not because I'm trying to like show anything to anybody, but just because I'm just trying to prove it to myself. Like, and because I want to continue to grow and expand, because in that process, you're also learning more about yourself, right?
Yeah.
I learn more about myself every time I, you know, quote unquote, grow, one of my businesses or achieve a success of some sort. Like I learn a lot about what I'm capable of, and I learn more about myself. I grow as an individual.
More.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to expand like this new sort of this training thing that I'm doing, where these personal development courses and on productivity and habits and relationships. Right now I'm working on this cool course on becoming a morning person, right? How to wake up early and create a morning ritual to set yourself up for a successful day. And so that's literally what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
And so I really am enjoying it. I'm enjoying the course creation stuff. And so it's been great. So
Yeah.
those are the two things. And then we launched an app for Flashbooks. Oh, and that's been struggling a bit,
Yeah.
because of because AI really makes things very uncertain in the digital world. Like
Yeah.
I things are really going to change
Things are
here
changing
in the
with
next five
AI and
years.
everything.
Yeah.
Have you
So
like
there's a lot of uncertainty,
a
in
lot
that
of
regard.
uncertainty in your space and like when right like we were talking about earlier, like writing and like is that where it's gonna like affect it, or like where do you think where like chat gbt or like AI and stuff is like uh gonna change this? I don't know, have you thought about that?
Yeah, where I think about it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, I'm thinking about it every day.
Keeping you up at
Bec-
night?
it is, and not well. I wouldn't say it's
No,
keeping me up at night, but
but just
like
something you
it's
think about.
definitely it's occupying a part of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that there are definitely going to be some dramatic changes that happen, like in this, not just the online landscape, but in reality, like every industry is going to be impacted by this thing.
Yeah.
And I believe that there needs to be like some serious legislation around it, because right
Yeah.
now it's like taking leashes off of a bunch of different, I see them as all like Rottweiler, like dangerous Rottweilers, right? That you just really like Chat GPT, and then there's Gemini from Google, and there's like there needs to be some parameters in place.
Yeah.
But that's an entirely different discussion, and I'm not equipped with enough knowledge to really even speak on it.
Yeah,
And
it's all
so,
new, right?
yeah,
It's all new.
it's
It's
all
all
new.
kind of things to like I've taken some courses on chat gpt, how to like increase productivity, but I don't know like the full capabilities of it. I played around with like AI and everything, but I think from watching and listening to a lot of people, I think there's some kind of like drastic change. I think one thing that I think won't go away in the future is just like this humanistic
Yeah,
approach.
yeah. The
I don't think this
personal
is, yeah.
the personal approach, man, there's nothing like it. And so that's like one solution that I've like sort of come up with is to really take a more personal approach,
Yeah.
to really inject more of your personality, your own little unique quirks and your own, characteristics. I think that people are going to really want more of that
Yeah.
from people from all walks of life and from all different types of industries. So the more unique and the more personal you can make it, the better. And so, I've not necessarily pivoted. I'm still doing audiobooks and narrating those, and I'm still creating audio content. And then, of course, we're going to do the podcast again at the end of the year. But I'm considering also including video into the podcast when I re-release
Yeah,
it.
you should
And
definitely include video.
yeah, and so and I've more recently jumped in to creating more, adding video to like this course that I'm making right now. It's 90, like almost 100% of it is video content
Yeah, I
because
think
I
video is
want to
good.
make sure that I, connect. And
Yeah,
I think that you need to do that. Please.
yeah, connecting like seeing a face. I think that's so. I think I've been coached on like digital marketing, and it's like Facebook's Facebook because it likes faces, right?
Right,
Like
right.
faces. You know what I'm saying? It's like the video format. It's so welcoming. That's why I try to put a lot of like faces on like my social media posts and everything. So it shows how you interact with other people. It shows your personality. Talking about like that human centric and just being a real human. We're not
Being a
just
real human. Yeah.
being a real
Yeah.
human, right? We're entrepreneurs, but we're not like we're a person running a personal development community, a personal or a course speaking business or whatever, a coaching program. So we're that behind the scenes, but in the forefront, like we as a brand, like I'm Samnang, you're Dean Bokhari and stuff. You established this. I think you have that, put in front of you. Like I think for me, as your big brother, as your coach and stuff, it's like you have the world of opportunities. I think it's just that scaling opportunity and just evolving. I think you've evolved enough, but I think more of like being yourself and personable and everything. I think and I enjoy that. I enjoy our conversations because when people hear my stuff, it's like very genuine and authentic and like real. And we're talking about like
Yeah,
personal stories and stuff.
for sure.
Yeah, and I pumped this on my Facebook. I was like, before Tim Ferriss, before Jocko, before Andrew Huberman, before whoever's big, Lewis House, Jay Shetty. This was my boy Dean Bokhari. You had started this game. L- Let me ask you, like, did you see somebody that podcasted, or you were just like, this is it, right? Because once you started podcasting, I think that's when it kind of just like clicked for you, right? Is that where, because you had
Yeah.
acting, you had YouTube. I remember watching some of your YouTube videos, but I think when you started podcasting, it was just like, wow, now he's legit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I hit my stride, man.
Yeah,
That's really where I hit my stride. And, I realized that I enjoyed it. And when you enjoy it and you can put your heart into it,
yeah,
people notice that. They feel
yeah,
it. There's something that happens when you really put your heart into it, and it's transferred through all these different pixels and these whatever, like, it's just people can feel it on the other side.
yeah,
And so, that's when I realized, okay, this is something that I might be able to build up here. And I did it for so the only podcast when I'd started this, I started podcasting in 2014.
right.
So goodness gracious, it's been 10 years, man.
10 years, but podcasting kind of blew up maybe like 5 years. Well, I don't know, 6 years, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the
it's been like
format is that. Yeah, the format is have guests come on, like you're on my guest on my
right, yeah,
episode and stuff. So
absolutely.
you take your audience and introduce, hey, this is my boy Dean Bakari. Let me put you on him. And it's just like, hey, like we've been doing personal development before. Like I like to tell people, like, hey, we've been doing personal development before Jay Shetty and Lewis House. You know what I'm saying? I just don't have a podcast. Now I have a podcast.
Right, right. Now you have a podcast, baby.
I have a
And so,
podcast. And people listen to
yeah.
me. I'm surprised.
Huh?
I'm
That people
surprised people
listen to
listen.
you? I'm
Yeah,
not.
like
I'm not surprised. You've got a wealth of wisdom, bro. So I'm not surprised at all that people listen to you. And so,
thanks, man.
people have a lot to learn from you. And so, yeah, to answer your question from a moment ago, I think the only podcast that I'd been exposed, no, to, yeah, actually, no, it was Joe Rogan. That was the
Joe
only
Rogan.
podcast that I was listening to when
Wait, so
I started.
Joe Rogan was podcasting when you started?
He was podcasting before I started.
Oh,
And
but so he had been on like 1,000 episodes before he kind of like blew up, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay, that's a
and so, when he had, in the early days, there weren't really even that many podcasts that
Yeah.
were out. There was like, what else was there was this guy, he's a comedian. I forget the name of his podcast. Mark something, the what the F podcast or something like that. It was really, really big. And there weren't really any personal development,
Yeah.
podcasts
Podcast.
out there. And I remember just one day I was just listening to
Joe
Joe
Rogan.
Rogan's podcast, and then it hit me. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try this. And then shortly thereafter, I did. And I just kept up with it. Like, I just knew that if I just stick with this, I'll get better, my audience will grow, and this will turn into something, even though I don't know exactly what it's going to turn into yet.
Yeah.
And it's led to more opportunities and more, good things coming my way than I can count. It just took a while. It took a couple of years
Yeah.
before I really gained traction.
Yeah.
So
Was that what helped a lot of like your businesses kind of grow with like networking? And that, so I got to correct. So I said that you were podcasting before Joe Rogan, but I guess Joe Rogan's been
oh, you
podcasting
did
for
say
the.
Joe? Yeah.
I gotta correct that. But so like
Yeah, yeah. He's
you've been
he is the
podcasting,
king, man.
is he?
He's just he's in a completely different industry and totally
Yeah,
different thing. We don't talk about the same things, but
yeah,
I
different
don't,
niche.
different niche, but you can still find, I find that man inspiring. I don't know why so many folks say so many negative things about him.
Yeah.
And
I think it's more of just being honest and like talking
yeah,
from your experience. That's where I kind of like my big hurdle, like, or like I think a lot of people's big hurdle is like, if you talk from your own experience, if you talk about your own worldview, like people really can't argue about it. Like, you know
right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like I have different perspective, different viewpoints, and like people don't agree. But if you could explain it properly, your own research, your own thoughts, and everything, and have people talk to you and understand, like it's a good conversation to have. He's really good in like where he's not so stuck on his own views, where he wants
right.
to get more understanding. Like I like to gain more understanding when I talk to you and like my friends and like guests and stuff too. So that's what I think makes him a really good podcaster, and he continues to learn, continues to grow, and be thoughtful and stuff too. So and my idea is to like podcasting is like I love, genuinely love podcasting. I was like, I don't know why I didn't do this more earlier.
Yeah, it's
uh,
fun.
it's fun. People appreciate it. That's one thing, is the appreciation that people like.
Have you
Uh,
done any so far where it's just like you direct to the audience, where it's like no guest or no co-host, but just like you speaking on a specific topic?
yes, I've done like two. Like one I did on flow. I've done one on like journaling. So that's kind of like if I don't have, the goal is to do like one podcast like a week. So I had 52 for the year. 52. I don't want to burn myself out because
Right.
so I think 52, and that was my goal, is to have like one coaching call or like a long format content piece of content out there. So that's my goal. And when I don't have guests on the show, just do some personal development, to help support the community, whether it be like one I just did
Yeah.
for like journaling, 5 different ways to journal. I actually plugged your journal, the men's journal that you had on
Oh,
there. So
nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always been, I told you, man, I plugged, that's my boy. I got
I appreciate it, man.
him. Nah,
Yeah.
man. But before maybe a few technical questions, I know you got to get
Sure.
going and stuff.
Yeah,
We're
hit me,
hitting
man.
our hour and a half. Optimizing like your like podcasting. You have it on Apple. You have Spotify. You have I don't know if you have YouTube, but iTunes. Um, how do you grow an audience? Like how the maybe just a little technical, so I could get an idea, so I could start
Yeah, yeah.
researching
So,
that.
of course, there's a million different ways to grow, but
Yeah.
I would say that, the biggest thing truly is remaining, like finding a schedule, right? So if you think about your favorite show, right, on
Mhm.
Netflix or wherever, if there's a series that you watch, you, especially when we were kids, when things would
You know
only,
what I was
you would
coming.
have to like watch it at a certain time, right? They'd be like, on 8 8 8 p.m. you got to tune in to watch this or else you're going to miss it, right? Now, things are, of course, a little bit different today because we've got access pretty much anytime we want, but we also want things as soon as they come out, right? Prime now, right? Same day delivery,
No, no,
right?
no.
So, or you get this notification on your phone that there's like a new episode up, and you're just like, oh man, if you're really into the show, you immediately click. And if you get those notifications or emails or alerts or whatever they may be at a consistent time, right? Like every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, then even if your listener doesn't consciously realize it yet, you're helping them form the habit of
Yeah,
listening to your content.
yeah,
And I think that's key because then people begin to expect your content at that specific time. They associate, they link it up, right? It gets anchored in their mind where, okay, Tuesday, 9 o'clock, that's FIFO with Samnang.
yeah.
And
Flow in, flow
so,
out.
obviously I'm just throwing a random,
Yeah, yeah.
day and time out there, but
Monday at 6 a.m. is the release date of Flow In, Flow Out. We were doing it too, but I had Danny supporting me, but I was like, let me just cut it back to one. So Monday, be consistent, good quality, really focus on the research and what I want to think about. Um, and then when you do these like so you have like these podcasts where it seems like you're so crisp. Like I'm just kind of like I just kind of wing it. How do you do like a teleprompter? Are you reading off of script, or how do you kind of conduct your research, or how do you put the framework to it?
yeah, sure. Yeah. So I like to have like, I don't really, I've got this thing where it's hard for me to really know what I think about something until I've written about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so my first sort of step is always to start writing, whether that be like, in
Writing.
my like journal or on my actual computer. I just, pull up something and I begin to write about whatever idea or thought or topic that I've got decked up. And once I've written about it, that's when I really begin to understand it, right, in my
Yeah,
mind. And
writing.
it's also where I begin to form an opinion about it. And once I've done that, of course, sometimes when I'm narrating an audiobook, I'm reading off of what I've written or what someone on my team has written for that
Yeah.
summary. And
Okay.
that's at Flashbooks. But then when it comes to podcast content and like audio training content that I do, sometimes I'm reading it directly, but most of the time I've already written something about it so that I can
So
understand
it's
it on a
already
deep level and master it, like truly master it. And then I like to have like a skeleton, right? Like a structure where like bullets, okay, this is how I'm going to introduce it, and
structure.
then I'll spend probably the majority of the time talking about the solution.
Yeah.
So, and then the ending, right? One big thing for me is,
One
and I
takeaway.
often tell people this, like when they ask me about like speaking stuff and stuff like that, like if you know how you're going to start and you know how you're going to end, things will become immeasurably easier for you. And
Ah,
you'll look like a much better speaker because if you start something, you've memorized, okay, this is how I'm going to kick it off, right? Like, yo, what's up everybody, today we're going to be talking about goal setting, right? And then if you know how you're going to end it, then you're not worried about all that. You're not like worried about all the, okay, how am I going to do end this and in the middle of your thing. And that allows you to really truly remain present throughout the duration of whatever thing you're doing.
okay.
So to answer your question, usually I've just got like a bulleted list of a couple main notes. And before I start, I know exactly how I'm going to start and I know exactly how I'm going to end.
Okay.
And that gives
Fantastic.
me, a good flow to work
That's
with.
very validating, because I think the creative process starts with writing. I've been doing a lot more writing and journaling, and I think my journaling practice kind of flourished, and learning how to like frame things. I've used Chat GBT to kind of like if I'm in a like a typically the inspiration when you're in flow, it's very easy, right? But
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT to kind of build like a framework and bullet points and everything, like to read off. So that's kind of similar to what I was like doing with like the going into like 5 journaling practices or something, building a framework of just like bullet points and everything, and write about it and think about it and everything, and then just kind of wing it kind of and just be okay. Like I know like sometimes I'm not, a great speaker. Sometimes I had to like go back and just like correct myself and just be okay with that. But I think within time and practice and stuff, it's getting like, gets better. So I think like,
Yeah, it gets better. I think the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more comfortable. I think it's all about being comfortable, man. It's
yeah,
really about being comfortable. And I think you're great at this, man. You're communicating honestly, like you're
yeah,
doing great, bro. And you'll continue to grow, and so will I. There's always room to get better for
yeah,
both of us. And that's what it is. It's a matter of consistency and practice and just doing it over and over again. And I
yeah,
mess up stuff
baby.
all the time. But dude, the mess ups, I think that helps you connect. It helps you
Yeah,
connect, especially with AI, because now there's these AI videos and AI voiceovers, and they sound like weird but
yeah,
perfect at the same time. People aren't connecting with that. Like that's
yeah,
at least I know I'm not.
hmm,
But when I'm listening to somebody and maybe they trip over their words, but I can tell that they are genuinely like they care about what they're talking about. They're
yeah,
they're excited, like they're fully bought in to whatever it is that they're talking about. Like when you are talking to somebody like that, it doesn't matter if they pronounce something wrong or trip over their words
yeah.
because their intention is in the right place.
It's true.
That's what matters to me.
I think for me, like Cambodian American, I didn't always grow up at like a great, as a fraternity, I was a terrible public speaker and stuff, but it was like a skill that I wanted to like kind of sharpen, and I did. I took a lot of sales calls. I took a lot of just when I started. I didn't really podcast. Sorry, I took Instagram story and was just like saying because they're like 30-second little clips. So I was just
Uh,
doing 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, right? So I was kind of like building up, so 30 seconds, and then I was doing like 5-minute clips on Facebook and stuff. And then I was like, oh, the next challenge is a podcast where I could talk for like 20 minutes. Well, I kind of break it up between like 5 to 10 minutes, because like 5 to 10 minutes, I try not anything I go for past like 10 minutes now, I start to kind of like lose my direction. But
right,
I
right,
think
right.
right
It starts
now,
to turn
right
into a
now,
conversation with your microphone.
yeah, you know that. But
Yeah.
dude, you're giving us some golden nuggets. I know the my flow in, flow out audience will love to hear you and get connected with you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put your show links and everything and keep us updated. I think having you on our podcast is a great part for like spreading this message of just I put the VCU the flag here and some of our fraternity to inspire people and give some creative ideas of one, personal development, or possibly like a career change, or podcasting as like a creative project. Because podcasting, let me say, like, it's June 21st. It's only been I've been podcasting since January, but we kind of cranked out some work when you're in that creative flow. And like Danny was helping me and everything. You just learn at a super accelerated pace. And I've learned so much, and having you as a great friend, a great mentor, a brother, right? I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, man.
I'm sure we'll connect together soon on like a personal phone call. But having you a guest on this podcast has been amazing. It's been very what's the word, validating.
Well, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor to be here, and I've 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 enjoyed the heck out of the last hour and some change, however long we've been talking. It's been a good time, man. It's been enriching
It
on
has been
my end as
enriching.
well.
I'm sure people will hear that as well too, and be inspired. But I appreciate your time. And if there's anything that you want to say before we leave the Flow In Flow Out podcast, so the Flow In Flow Out podcast drops once a week on Monday at 6 a.m. We're on YouTube. That's where you get the video, and Spotify. And I'm just trying to learn as much as possible about myself, entrepreneurship, solopreneurship. It's a lot of personal growth, working out, maybe next time we could talk about your fitness journey. How I got you
Yeah,
in.
that's a whole other story right there, man. You know,
Yeah.
you're responsible for the initiation of that fitness journey, man.
Yes.
'Cause I saw your transformation, and I
I
was
think I've
like,
been a inspiration to a lot of people in the fitness and getting jacked. So
yeah,
we
man,
could definitely talk about that, man. I love to
let's
have
do
it.
it.
But yes, if you, is there anything else you want to say before we say adios or say we'll
No,
see you
man,
later?
I just thank you for having me on. It's been a good time, and I'm looking forward to our next one, brother.
Next one. Yes. All right, brother. Thank you for everything, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Sounds great, man. Chat soon.